Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon video. So today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different and I'm going to be talking about decks to invest in. So what I mean about decks to invest in is basically decks that are going to be lasting quite a while based on the current information that we have about the Digimon TCG. So usually the hardest part about starting or getting into a new TCG if you're new is where do I start, what should I get, what's going to last me the longest, so that way I can make my investment worth the while. And today I'm going to hopefully answer some of those questions, and this is going to be a two-part mini-series where today I'm going to be covering decks that you should be investing in for yellow, red, and blue, and then the next time I do something like this, it'll be for the other three of black, green, and purple. So without further ado, some of the best decks that you should be investing in red, blue, and yellow. So starting things off with blue, I think one of the best blue decks that you could be investing in is going to be Imperialdramon Dragon Mode. So the blue version of Imperialdramon Dragon Mode is looking to be a very powerful deck, not only just for the current meta that we are in BT05, but in the future as well. He still stays relatively meta relevant because he gets some small incremental upgrades throughout the coming sets. And then on top of that, we know that he is going to be getting a starter deck, so we don't know how that starter deck is going to impact the deck's overall viability, but regardless, it looks like Imperialdramon is here to stay, and he is still a very powerful deck. So what's making him very powerful, at least on a fundamental level, is just the native synergies that he's playing around with. So he's playing around with the jamming mechanic, which allows him to basically safely swing into the opponent's security, where your only fear is options in the opponent's security, because jamming will make your Digimon auto-live throughout the security battles of the opponent's security Digimon. So that's looking to be really powerful, on top of which he has this nice ability to unsuspend all your Digimon with jamming. So the more jamming Digimon they introduce, and the more jamming Digimon you could keep on your field, the stronger his Wind Digivolve becomes, allowing you to get more and more attacks off. And then what's making him really powerful as of right now is the fact that he does have interactions with Imperialdramon to just gain additional attacks himself. So the whole native synergy in combo is you're going to move Imperialdramon out of raising, swing once with Imperialdramon, Digivolve into Imperialdramon, swing with Imperialdramon because he gets to unsuspend himself because he natively has jamming. Then off of Imperialdramon's ability, you get to unsuspend Imperial again to basically equate to 3 attacks for just using 3 memory, because he also will reduce his evolution cost Digivolving on top of Imperialdramon. And we could set that up thanks to a memory fixing tamer in the form of Davis that also helps look for blue and green cards, which is the cards that Imperialdramon is going to be playing around with, because you also have Dino Beamon and you also have the green Imperialdramon if you so want to choose to run him. But regardless, as of right now, it's just looking to be a very strong synergy between all of that. And on top of that, you also have the new Omnimon from BT05 that just allows you to unsuspend him and attack even when passing the memory onto the opponent's turn, because of the Blitz ability to basically get a 4th attack off on top of any other attacks or damage you had before. So that's just a very powerful combo of cards, and it has a very good value engine and aggression engine in the form of the Vmons, where you have the Vmon that just natively has jamming, so he's just an easy card to get out to try to get multiple swings off on the opponent's security, because Imperial will unsuspend him. And on top of that, you have some other Vmon cards to just interact with the fact that they are unsuspending themselves, so you have a lot of native built-in synergy and a lot of decent card draw on top of various other tools. So this is just looking like it's going to be a very powerful deck that's here to stay. And if we take a look at the future support that it's getting, taking a look at BT06, we're not really getting anything that's directly supporting the deck in a very meaningful way. The majority of the cards are going to go to like a Hexablaumon type of support in the form of Zulongmon, where you just want to attack the opponent's inheritable sources, which we're not looking to really do. And it's also supporting Gabumon Bond of Friendship, which is its own new deck, and in the set we also aren't really getting that many new or interesting like options or tamers to be using, because again, all of them are more supporting what is going to be in the set. But we do have coming with BT06 the new All-Force deck, and the new All-Force deck, it does have just a couple of different cards that we could use to help support Imperialdramon. So we have stuff like Dracmon and we have stuff like Vidramon to just help out the overall strategy of the deck, and we also could use other cards like Cordramon and some of the various other tools here. as just some alternate cards that we could think about playing around with. So we are getting just a tiny bit of support in BT06, but we also get, along with the starter deck, the new promo of the blue memory boost, which could help the deck function quite a lot, just because this is a really good option to be utilizing. So we do get a little bit of stuff to add to the deck in BT06 to keep that around, but in Classic Collection is where we're going to be getting a huge chunk of new support tools, just because we are getting a whole new Imperialdramon line in the set. So we could kind of mix and match and fuse the two Imperialdramon lines together to really create some interesting decks with, not only just for blue, but for green as well, because in the blue half, we do get a lot of new tools. So we get a new Vmon, we get a new X-Vmon, which could digivolve off of blue or green, even though it's only going to count as a blue Digimon. Just that level of flexibility gives us a lot of diverse options to start thinking about utilizing, on top of the fact that we get a new Imperialdramon, which is also pretty good because it works with the current Imperialdramons that we could be playing around with. And then same thing with green, we also get a new Stingmon, which is also looking to be another really good card because, again, we have Davis to help search out our blue-green cards, and then we also have a new Dino Bmon to also help interact with the deck, and we even have a brand new Imperialdramon to act as just another mega to be playing around with, because Imperialdramon is a rather greedy mega, and it's hard to fit other megas in outside of Imperialdramon just because of how he works as a whole. So there's just a lot that the Classic Collection is doing to keep the deck relevant, and it definitely is going to be coming back in a huge wave in Classic Collection, even though it is going to take a tiny bit of a dip in BT06 because it's not really updating the deck. And in BT07, if you wanted to, we do have a tiny bit of indirect support because you could still be playing around with the hybrid package, and the fact that BT07 is adding new hybrids to the game is making it look a little bit more interesting to just play around with a hybrid sub-package. So there's a lot that you could do with the deck in BT07, but you're most likely still going to be using a lot of the Classic Collection cards at the time of BT7. But post BT7, along with BT8, we're getting a lot of new support for the deck because we know BT08 is going to be 0-2 focused, and 0-2 is where Imperialdramon is from, so there is going to be a lot of new support there, on top of the fact that he is going to be getting a starter deck. So we don't know the full details on any of those, but the fact that he is going to be getting support all the way up through at least BT08 is making the deck look like it's going to have a lot of very good longevity to play. So if you're really interested in a very aggressive style deck that's playing around with 1 to 2 colors, then Imperialdramon is looking to be the deck for you. Next up, we have Ancient Garurumon. So Ancient Garurumon is looking to be a pretty good deck to be running, not only for the current meta because it's doing something very similar to Imperialdramon, where it's a very aggressive combo-heavy deck that's just trying to utilize multiple swings to end the game as quickly and powerfully as it possibly can, but the fact that it's playing around with Garurumon synergies and hybrid synergies means that this deck can do a lot and play with a lot of different tools based on both of those synergies. And in later sets, you could even split up the deck into a couple of different sub-decks, where you could run this with the Gabumon Bond of Friendship stuff, you could run this with the new hybrid stuff. Like, there's just a lot of flexible tech and tools that you could be using, all stemming off of this deck right here. So as far as what the deck is doing, essentially we're trying to take advantage of 2 cards. The first card is going to be the Promo Lobomon, just because the Promo Lobomon has this nice Wind Digivolving ability to allow us to warp all the way up into our Ancient Garurumon, so the opponent might not be anticipating or expecting us to literally just go Rookie out of Raising, Digivolve into Lobomon, then Digivolve into Ancient Garurumon. You're still going to get the draws because you're still Digivolving, and then you could utilize Ancient Garurumon to swing multiple times and make your other Digimon on the field swing multiple times. Or if you want, you could play this tempo strategy where you could utilize his inheritable ability to just allow you to basically just Digivolve into Ancient Garurumon for 3, which is why having our Memory Fixing Tamer is super important for the deck, because a lot of our plays are based off of 3 memory. And then on top of that, we also have other ways ways to aggress in the deck. So we have Garurumon Sagittarius mode that could give himself jamming, and he could buff our Ancient Garurumon. And then on top of that, we also have various other Garurumons to just give our cards security attack plus. So I really prefer using the promo Garurumon just because he natively could have multi-attacks himself, and on top of that, he also just gives security attack +1. So this paired up with either Ancient or Sagittarius mode is just looking to be pretty good, or just attacking with it himself just for multiple security checks because of his multi-attacking ability is just, again, really, really good. Then we just have a whole bunch of other cards to just support and round out the deck. So we have the other Lobomon to act just as another hybrid and Digivolve on top of our Tamer to try to help close out the game that way. And on top of that, we also have the new Garurumon, which is looking to be really good to support our Garurumons that we're Digivolving into. So that's just really powerful on top of a whole bunch of ways to just dig and search and draw out our cards. So we have Gabumon to just help dig for our Garurumons and Omnimons. We have Gabumon to just help draw us cards. We have Strabimon to help dig for our Tamer and hybrids. So there's just a lot of search and digging in the deck already to just try to make sure that we could find our pieces as quickly and consistently as we possibly can. On top of that, we do have the new Sunamon to act as some good DP boosting to ensure that our Digimon are going to be as strong as they possibly can be, because sometimes you do need to aggress with your lower levels because you just need to try to get whatever swings you can off to try to, again, help close out the game as quickly as you possibly can with Ancient Garurumon. And on top of all of that, we do run the Blitz Omnimon. Similar reasons to why we're running him in Imperialdramon is why he's good here. He's just acting as an extra attack to try to close out the game with. So it is just a very high synergy, aggressive, combo-heavy deck that just has a lot of different ways to be played, and as such, it has a lot of different support and tools that it's going to be adopting and utilizing in the future as well. So in BT06, we do get a new Strabimon to help propel the hybrid package and support the hybrid package a little bit better. And then on top of that, we do have the Gabumon and Gabumon Bond of Friendship support that allows us to gain access to another warp. So on top of the fact that we could warp into Ancient Garurumon, we also have the possible potential of warping into Gabumon Bond of Friendship, and Gabumon Bond of Friendship is a level 7 in case we don't want to warp. But regardless, the fact that we have access to these new tools really gives the deck a lot of extra viability and longevity. Then, on top of that, in the Classic Collection, we do have a new Gabumon and a new Garurumon to help support and facilitate the Garurumon package and the Gabumon Bond of Friendship package. We also have another Garurumon if you want to play around with just generic Garurumon stuff. So there is just building it in a more Garurumon-esque style that's allowing it to be really, really good and powerful there as well. So you could build it with either the Garurumon stuff, hybrid stuff, or Bond of Friendship stuff as of the Classic Collection, and that's looking to be very, very powerful. On top of the fact that in BT07, we are getting a lot of new hybrid tools to be utilizing, so we get even more tech and more possible options on how we could play the deck in a more hybrid style deck. And then on top of that, we also do have a little bit of support for 10 Warriors itself, so it definitely is looking to be a really good deck to be playing all the way up through BT7, with a lot of different ways to be building the deck and customization options to really make the deck your own. So if you're really interested in a mono blue deck that's being very aggressive and has lots of different ways to build it, then Ancient Garurumon, Garurumons, and hybrids is kind of the direction you want to go into. Next, as far as a really good red deck that you could invest in, I would say that the best red deck to get is going to be red Greymons and hybrids. So what the deck is doing is essentially almost the same exact thing as the Ancient Garurumon deck, except this is the red equivalent where you're utilizing Ancient Greymon and its tools in some various different ways, and similar to how you could build Ancient Garurumon in a lot of different ways. So you could use Ancient Greymon to double down and focus on the Greymon synergies, or you don't even necessarily have to use Ancient Greymon and just double down on all of the Greymon synergies as a whole. Or if you want, you could double down on a lot of the hybrid synergies, because you also have a very similar line of play where the idea is you're just going to use Agunimon to warp into Ancient Greymon and be another very aggro style deck there, where instead of just getting multiple attacks off to try to check all of the opponent's security that way, the red equivalent is just stacking security attack +1 to basically punch once and punch really, really hard. And then you have, again, very similar tools to help close out the game in the form of Omnimon for the Blitz, and you also have Agumon to act as the Lobomon to just Digivolve on top of your Tamer to end up swinging for the game that way. So red is, again, doing something very similar to blue, and you have a lot of similar tools doing very good things, and you do have some other tech and options that you could be possibly playing around with. So red has the availability of some really good options to utilize, not only just for some removal, but for some utility as well. So you could run something like a Delicate Plan if you are trying to go for the one-punch type strategy, where it's just going to make your punch very, very safe, and then you have a whole bunch of removal options in the form of Gaia Force and Transcendent Sword. So it's just looking to be another really good deck that has a lot of flexible options and diverse tools that you could use to customize it to your own liking. But as far as what this deck currently is doing, it's basically just, again, taking advantage of the whole idea where you're going to use Agumon to warp into Ancient Greymon. So because the warp into Ancient Greymon is a little bit different than in blue, it allows you to actually utilize some cards very differently, and as such, you build the deck a little bit differently there. So it allows you to use cards like a Delicate Plan to boost your Agumon. Same thing with Atomic Inferno. You could use these cards preemptively before you swing to make sure that Agumon is in the state that you want him to be in, so that way all of the buffs will transfer over into Ancient Greymon when you warp up into him, ensuring that your Ancient Greymon is going to be as strong as it possibly can. Even though the attack most likely is going to end up ending your turn, it doesn't necessarily matter because we're just trying to use Ancient Greymon to punch as hard as we possibly can and win probably on the following turn, if not that same turn, because of Omnimon. But we do get a lot of very powerful utility tools that we could be using in the deck. So we get stuff like Agumon, where it helps dig out your Greymons and Omnimons. Then we get Agumon that helps dig out your Tamers. And then we get Flamemon that also helps dig out your Tamers and can help dig out your hybrids as well. So that way you could actually use Agumon and have easier ways of finding him, because red doesn't have that great of card draw. But we do just have a lot of various other things that we could be doing in the deck, and you could build the deck in various different ways, all depending on which aspect of the deck you're trying to support. But speaking of the support of the deck can be played in a couple of different ways in the future. So you could line yourself up to transition into an Agumon Bond of Courage deck, just because it's doing some very similar things to Gabumon Bond of Friendship, except this is trying to burn the opponent's security and delete the opponent's Digimon, while having access to an easy warp into a level 7, which is still just very powerful, on top of the fact that you still have the Ancient Greymon stuff that you can be interacting with, and you do get some more Agumon and Greymon synergies and supports that come with it, and on top of that, you also do have a new Flamemon to just help Ancient Greymon a little bit more by giving him the piercing ability, so that way he can ensure that he's actually doing the damage. So it's already looking like this is going to be a really good deck to invest in for the next set. But on top of that, in the Classic Collection, we also do get more cards to support the Bond of Courage deck and Greymons as a whole, just because we do get a new Agumon and a new Greymon that help you dig and play your tie, so that way you could warp that much easier and efficiently. Then we do get a new Metal Greymon and War Greymon that just help with Greymons as a whole. So there's just a lot that you could do based on the Greymon synergy, the Bond of Courage synergy, and the Hybrid synergy alone. We already know that in BT07, Red has a good line of hybrids that you could continue to use to build and customize the deck in a more hybrid-centered deck as well. So, like I said, you have Greymons, Agumon Bond of Courage, and hybrids that you could take the deck in, and that's just a lot of different ways you could build the deck, all depending on what you want, all stemming off of this one deck. So if you're interested in looking for a red deck that is allowing you to do a whole bunch of different things, that's also being very aggressive at the same time, because you're just trying to punch the opponent's security as hard as you possibly can while controlling and mitigating their field, then this is looking to be the deck for you. Next, as far as a really good yellow deck to invest in, I'd probably say ShineGreymon is one of the better yellow decks to invest in. So what's making ShineGreymon so good is the fact that he is interacting with tamers, and the fact that we could use our tamers to DP reduce the opponent's Digimon, make him a really good control style deck because we could gain lots of value off of all of the different tamers that we're going to be playing, and then we could use our tamers as fodder for ShineGreymon to rest them to start deleting the opponent's Digimon in various different ways. So we could use this ability to machine gun wide fields and delete the opponent's Digimon that way, or we could use this to stack it all on one Digimon to delete lots of very powerful threats we might not be able to deal with otherwise. So the fact that he has a good level of flexibility on how we could control the opponent's field based on how many tamers we have is already looking to be really good, and when Yellow gets more varied and better tamers to be playing around with, that's what's going to be making Shine even stronger, is just all of those new tech and tools that you could be adding based on tamers. And then on top of that, what the deck is currently already doing is the fact that we do have ShineGreymon both in red and yellow to be able to play our tamers for free, so that way we have an easy way to get our tamers onto the field versus a lot of the other decks where most of the time they actually have to hard play their tamers. So it's just looking to be really strong for that, on top of just a whole bunch of very generic and powerful yellow cards to be working with. So you have stuff like Patamon that just helps you gain a memory, you have stuff like Garurumon that's just helping you gain card draw, you have stuff like Salamon to help you recover. We could gain lots of memory because of all of our tamers stacking all of their abilities, so stuff like Bushi becomes even easier to play, and we have ways to dig out our tamers with the BT01 Patamon. So there's just a ton of different things that you could do, all depending on the stuff that you're actually trying to be running and to the type of deck you're trying to be building, because you could build this a little bit more aggressive or you could build it a little bit more defensive, all depending on how much recovery and other tools that you are putting in the deck. So it is just looking to be a really good deck, and as long as yellow tamers are getting better, then that'll just, again, make ShineGreymon even better because of those yellow tamers. But as far as yellow cards to think about going forward for enhancing and improving the deck, we get stuff like Mastemon to just help us recover, and we do get a little bit more recover cards and some more defensive cards that we could be interacting and playing around with. On top of which, we also do get a new yellow tamer in the form of TK Inkari as a good duo tamer to be running. So this is just another card that helps us control with its second ability, and it's a duo tamer on its first ability, getting us even more ways to gain additional memory, and because it costs 4, we could easily play it off of either of our ShineGreymons, so that's already looking to be pretty strong of an upgrade, on top of the fact that we do get some very powerful new options that we could be playing around with. So we do have a really good control type tool, which is basically almost Yellow's equivalent to Gaia Force in the form of Wyvern's Breath, and then on top of that we also have a reinforced memory boost to just try to help us recover and rake the top card of our deck while also gaining us some card draw, while also acting as a really good way of just gaining us lots of memory relatively quickly because of its delay ability. And then in the starter decks, we do get the promo yellow memory boost, which also is just another generic way of trying to dig out our yellow Digimon. So just already in BT06, the deck is looking to be pretty good. And then in Classic Collection, we do have a couple of really interesting tools that you could think about utilizing. Most of this is going to be centered around Angels, but you could consider using some really good inheritable abilities where if you're trying to force the opponent not to attack into your security, then you're going to have a higher security threshold than you normally would. So you could actually utilize the stuff like Salamon here, where if you have more than 3 security, or if you're still at that 3 security threshold, then you're going to be gaining some additional benefits, similar to how Gatomon works as well. So you do still get some generic yellow tools, it's just not as good because it's more centered around Angels and various other things. But come BT07, we do get yellow hybrids, and with the yellow hybrids, we do get another yellow tamer. So the yellow tamer that we're getting is going to be Zoe, and Zoe is going to be interacting with the yellow hybrids. So we could even adopt a yellow hybrid sub-package, just because, again, the yellow hybrid package is going to be pretty good because it allows you to actually utilize your tamers in some various different ways. So one of those ways is using something like Kazemon, similar to how Lobomon worked all the way back in BT04, where we could just digivolve on top of our tamer to try to push some aggression that way. And then we still have the other hybrid yellow cards to be thinking about, so you could consider running Zephyrmon as another additional card to Digivolve on top of your Tamers. Then to round out the hybrid support, we could run Jet Sylphimon, and we could even think about running Ancient Kazimon, just because you could really customize the deck based on the Tamers that you're using to try to optimize and maximize on some of these card effects. And then on top of all of that, we do still just have some other really good ways of digging out our Tamers and our hybrid Digimon, so that's looking to be like a really good sub-package that you could think about adopting on top of any of Yellow's other really good generic tools. So if you really felt like it, you could use Kazuchimon and the Pulsepon line stuff, just because they are still really good. It is controlling and manipulating your security, and Yellow isn't necessarily known at having the best security as a pure Yellow deck. So having a way to just recover a lot just to try to force your Tamers into your security, so you could force them onto the field when the opponent's aggressing into your security, is also looking to be very good, similar to why you would want to consider running something like Dynasmon. So Kazuchimon is fulfilling that same type of role, while also having some other various types of utility based on the types of support you could be running with it. So if you're interested in a control style Yellow deck that has lots of potential depending on the types of support and tools you want to be running with it, then ShineGreymon is looking to be the deck for you. And then the last deck that I want to talk about today as far as a really good deck to invest in for the long term is going to be the Yellow version of Mastemon. So Mastemon is a pretty decent Digimon where she's a purple Digimon natively, and you could play her either in purple or in yellow, and I think that the way that the card game has laid out all of the types of cards and tools and support, Mastemon definitely wants to be played in yellow more than it does in purple. And Yellow has just a whole bunch of very strong cards to be interacting with as a whole already, just because of the core fundamentals of Yellow is already looking to be pretty strong. So you could play Mastemon with a more controlled type variant where you could focus on DP reduction. You could play Mastemon in a more grind style variant where you could focus a little bit more on recovery. You could play Yellow Mastemon in an aggro style variant where you're just trying to play bodies onto the field. You could play her in a toolbox style variant where you're just doing a little bit of everything. So there's just a lot of different things that you could do with Mastemon, and the fact that Yellow as a whole gets some very good support cards definitely makes the color and this type of a deck a really good deck to think about in the long term. So what's making Mastemon as powerful as she is her ability to just be able to play a level 4 yellow or purple Digimon for free when you Digivolve into her. Unfortunately, you are burning both yours and your opponent's security, but you don't care about burning your security because we're yellow and we have ways of recovering it, so we could mitigate this type of ability while burning the opponent's security, pushing a little bit of the aggression that way, and we have just a whole bunch of very powerful cards we could be interacting with, both as of right now and in the future. So as of right now, some of the best types of support tools that we have for her is going to be something like the Promogatomon that'll gain blocker as long as you have a purple Digimon on the field. So you could run a little bit more purple hybridy where you could run some really good purple cards like Chimeramon as just a good hard play effect. You could run stuff like Gazimon just because you could try to block the opponent's memory out. So there's other purple cards that you could run outside of Mastemon in this style of deck, and you could maximize that type of ability, on top of which you also get the ability to recover 1 as long as we have 3 or fewer cards in our security. So this is like the best type of support for her, next to the fact that we're spawning bodies, so what better way to spawn even more bodies than with Angelwomon, just because she helps us spam bodies onto the field. Then we have some very powerful level 3s and level 4s that we could be playing. So as of right now, I think just the blocker package is just really good between Unimon and Pidomon, just because being able to save ourselves from lethal is already looking to be pretty strong. And then on top of that, we have some very powerful level 3s to be playing around with. So we have Pulsemon to potentially gain us a card draw and or memory. We have Bushi Agumon to help with the aggression of the deck. We have Patamon to help us recover. We have Salamon to help us recover. We have Lucimon to help us recover. And then we also get stuff like Starmons to help with the control stuff. So there's just a lot of different things that you could be doing and utilizing in the deck, on top of having some other really powerful level 5s that we could be playing around with. So we could even be playing around with ShineGreymon to help play our Tamers for free and try to control the opponent's field a little bit better, similar to why we would want to consider running more Growlmon to just try to help control the opponent's field and make our Digimon a little bit stronger. Then we get tempo cards like Sirenmon to just help with the overall flow and function of the deck, similar to Teruimon. Then we also have access to a couple of different level 7s because we are dipping into purple mainly, just because we are trying to focus on Mastemon as the main mega. So you could run Zwart Defeat, or Millenniumon if you really wanted to focus on the purple side of it, or if you wanted to, you could just play Chaosmon Volderarm just for a yellow one. So it's just looking like we have a lot of different options, tech, and tools to be utilizing, all depending on the types of cards you want to be supporting the deck with. And we even have other really powerful cards to help facilitate the deck, like Blinding Ray and War Greymon, to just do a whole bunch of various other things on top of whatever the deck is currently doing. And then in BT6, we get a lot of cards that indirectly support what Mastemon is doing, because Mastemon is also trashing some of our security. So we have Dynasmon to help us recover whenever we're doing that. Then we also have Tapirmon to help us draw cards, and Wizardmon to help us gain a memory, and we even have Mistymon to help with DP reduction. So this type of a sub-theme is already looking to be pretty strong, on top of some other very good level 4s that we could be playing around with for the deck, like Mimicmon to just try to help us gain us memory, to try to be as memory efficient as we possibly can while utilizing Mastemon's ability. And that's just in BT6 alone, on top of all of the other yellow cards I've previously laid out before. And then in Classic Collection, we do get a couple of new cards to be playing around with. So we do get some Angel support, and Mastemon is an Angel, so you could consider playing some of the Angel support cards, and there's quite a bit of different Angel support cards that we could think about utilizing. I think the majority of the Angels kind of counteract and contradict with what Mastemon is doing, considering the whole sub-theme of a lot of the Angels is being at 3 or more security, but we could utilize the fact that we're going to be recovering in some various different ways and trying to control and manipulate our security, so we could lean a little bit heavier into that to try to actually make like a Mastemon Angels type build, and I think that's going to be a pretty interesting deck to be playing around with if you choose to go in that direction, thanks to the Classic Collection. And then, as I mentioned before, in BT07, we could consider playing around with the hybrids, just because the hybrids are pretty good. We're not directly trying to interact with tamers a whole lot, but like just the fact that they are good game finishers is looking to be pretty good, just because the opponent might not be expecting you to digivolve one of your tamers into one of your Digimon to try to help swing for the game. And we even have the Pulsemon and Kazuchimon line to just help us control and manage and manipulate our own security that much more efficiently. So there's just already looking to be a ton of flexible, diverse options that we have to pull from to really make Mastemon a really good deck. On top of the fact that we also know that Mastemon is going to be getting a starter deck, so that starter deck, it could help propel this type of a deck forward in some very powerful ways, because all of the other starter decks before it kind of have followed a very similar pattern where whatever it's going to be upgrading, it definitely is going to be really powerful and meta relevant with some good cards in it to support not only just the new stuff, but the old stuff as well. So if you're looking for a deck with a ton of different options and flexible toolboxing potential, then Mastemon is looking to be the deck for you. So I am aware that as of right now, there are some other very strong decks that you could think about picking up and playing, but those decks definitely seem more for the now type of a thing rather than actually looking towards the future. Granted, some of these decks have a little bit better longevity because of the types of tools, mechanics, and stuff that they're playing around with. So something like Hexablaumon is looking to be a pretty okay deck to be picking up, just because we know that in BT06, Zulongmon is playing around with the same type of sub-theme as Hexablaumon, so that's going to be making Hexablaumon stronger as a result. And they're just playing with that a tiny bit in the Classic Collection, so it does get another small incremental upgrade there, but it really doesn't get anything in BT07 to really help push or propel the deck forward, so its kind of longevity just stops right there until they decide to go back to the mechanic. Same thing with Shoutmon DX, where it's like he is playing with the Blitz ability, and there are just a couple of Blitz cards and new Shoutmon cards that you could be playing around with in the future, but the deck really doesn't change that much. Similar to Lord Nightmon, while there are a whole bunch of different variants to Lord Nightmon, at the end of the day, it's still just Lord Nightmon, and you're still doing the same type of things, and there's not really that much flexible, diverse options outside of the few couple of different builds that you could consider playing with. So like I said, all of these 3 decks are more for the in the now type of the thing, rather than looking towards the future and building something and having lots of different ways to build with what you can be prepping and preparing yourself for. Now, I'm not saying these decks aren't necessarily good in the future. They all still have their own levels of playability. It's just the whole focus of this was to pick decks that actually have really good longevity, that could be upgraded in the future in various different ways to give you lots of different upgrade paths and different options, so that way you could have the most bang for your buck based on what you want to be playing and investing in. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.